afternoon, and welcome to the first Sunday session with Sash. I would first like to thank you all for tuning in today, and I would like to let you know that the first topic we are going to discuss is depression, and more specifically, Major Depressive Disorder. I would like to begin with a disclaimer. As many of you may or may not know, I'm in pursuit of my master's degree in professional counseling. I am being supervised by a licensed counselor. I have the professional knowledge and the ability to provide diagnosis. Statements made in these sessions are general information and not personalized. For more in-depth information about personal treatment that may be needed, please consult with your family doctor or a local counselor. If you need assistance finding these resources, I will be able to help. You can inbox me on Facebook, or you can send me an email. My email will be provided below in the description. Due to this being an informative platform, I'm not responsible for the actions taken because of these sessions. If you or someone you know is in danger of harming themselves or others, please contact 911 immediately. All right, let's begin. I would like to start off with general information about depression. The diagnostic information that I am giving comes straight from the DSM-V, which is the manual that counselors use in order to diagnose individuals with illnesses. It is also used by doctors and other medical professionals, but mostly it is known for its use in the therapeutic world. Okay, so some of the diagnostic criteria includes that symptoms of depression are present over a 2-week period. And usually these symptoms are a change from the person's typical functioning. This change does not count towards the symptoms that are displayed due to a medical condition. For example, if someone is more fatigued after surgery, or they're more fatigued due to cancer, that would not be considered as a criteria for depression. However, they can experience depression after those instances. Some of the criteria include depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure, a depressed mood for most of the day or nearly every day, significant weight loss or gain that is not intended, so the person's not trying to lose weight by exercising or trying to gain weight by bulking up. Insomnia, where they sleep little to no time at all, or they do not have a regular sleep pattern. Hypersomnia, where they sleep all the time and again have not a regular sleep pattern. Increased or decreased movement. The best way to explain this is if you've ever seen Eeyore, how he slowly moves about. If that's not typical to what the person is usually doing, that can be a symptom of depression. Fatigue every day, regardless if they do a lot of activities that day or not. Guilt or feeling worthless. Indecisive, not able to concentrate, and reoccurrent thoughts of death. Usually the thoughts of death include suicide. Symptoms that cause significant distress or impairment to their daily life. So they don't go to work every day, which causes them to lose their job, or they don't take care of their children, or they significantly decrease their social interactions for somebody who would typically be a social person, etc. This symptom cannot be the result of a substance abuse or other mental health condition. If it is, then that person typically is experiencing substance abuse disorder or another mental health condition. Every mental health condition has levels: mild, moderate, and severe. typical and in line with physical conditions. There are other characteristics that can come with major depressive disorder, including psychosis, partial remission, meaning that they can go without the symptoms of depression for a long time and then have it again. Full remission, which means they are typically in recovery, and unspecified. Every diagnosis usually has an unspecified category because everyone, again, is personal and every treatment is personalized. So therefore, some criteria they may meet and others they may not, but they typically show the symptoms of depression. Then a mental health professional will diagnose them with major depressive disorder, not otherwise specified. Some additional specificities include with anxious distress with a seasonal pattern. So some people may experience depression over the wintertime, most likely because of the holidays and being with family if for some reason they don't have family or a tragedy occurred in their life at that time. Some experience more depression in the springtime. It depends on the person and things that they've experienced in life that could cause the seasonal depression, as well as like some physical attributes. So in the wintertime, there is less sun, which decreases the amount of vitamin D we take in, which can decrease mood and cause depression. And I use the word cause very loosely because in mental health, there's no direct cause for illnesses. There are a lot of factors that come in, but we will discuss that a little later. There are several risk factors that can attribute to someone having depression. One of them is personal attitude. So if you have a negative attitude about everything that you experience or anything that's going on in your life, you typically will create negative thoughts, and then your brain will be trained to respond negatively, therefore putting you at higher risk for depression. Environmental risk factors, usually individuals who experience more stress like poverty or job loss or abuse, things like that, they are more likely to be diagnosed with depression. Now, when I stated about poverty, that doesn't mean that people who have money don't experience depression. It's just that people who have less money are typically diagnosed with depression more. Genetics can also be a risk factor. For depression specifically, genetic risk factor is about 40%. So if you have a family member, most likely your parents, that experience depression, you are 40% more likely to be diagnosed with depression. Next, we will go through the coping strategies. So, these coping strategies that I have listed here are non-medical or non-medication coping strategies. I personally, and I will go into this a little bit more later, take a non-medication approach when it comes to mental health. But at the same time, I understand that path is not the same for everyone, and other people may need medication versus others may be able to cope without, and that is okay as well. Taking medication is nothing for mental illness or for any mental condition is nothing to be ashamed of. So the first coping strategy I would like to go through is increased socialization. So the best thing that you can do to help with depression is to keep in contact with your family and friends. Send them a text and say, hey, how are you? Or what is something you did this week? It doesn't have to always be about how you feel. Talking to other people about the things you're not stressed or depressed about can help relieve depression. Although I do think that you should find a person that you feel comfortable expressing your feelings with, because keeping it bottled inside is not healthy either. You can increase your socialization by engaging in regular outings. Go take a walk. Go take a ride in your car. Do something outside of your house or the place that is causing you, or where you're experiencing your depression the most. I understand that this is harder during COVID. That's why I gave the examples of like taking a ride or going for a walk. They have things like drive-in movies where you can still social distance. Just engage in socialization with other people while still being safe. Be more active. Exercising increases the output of dopamine in your brain, and dopamine is listed as the happy drug in our brain. So the more dopamine that you are releasing, the happier that you will be. A lot of mental illnesses present themselves due to a chemical imbalance in the brain, and this is why for some people medication is helpful, because for some people the imbalance may be greater than others. But something natural that you can do is exercise to increase that dopamine that your brain may be lacking. A small walk every day could change your mood. Face your fears. And when you're experiencing depression, you most likely are fearing some things that are happening or that have happened. For example, just a novel example of a child falling off a bike. I'm not saying a child would be depressed from falling off a bike, but they would be fearful of getting back on the bike again. The best thing for that child to do, or anyone to do after they experiencing something that causes fear, is to take little steps to face that fear. I'm not saying jump right back on the bike, because it could create anxiety, but maybe look at the bike at first and sit on the bike and walk with the bike, and increase to the point where you feel more comfortable than riding the bike or engaging in that activity again. Push yourself to make small goals. Usually as humans, we make bigger goals than we can accomplish, and then when we don't reach them, we feel defeated, when in fact we don't realize the little accomplishments we made to get there. One of the things that I like to tell myself is that if I find myself failing, I only tripped over a small pebble on the climb of a big mountain. So if you could picture that. And if I get stuck up on that one pebble that I tripped over and try to turn around and go back down the mountain, I'll never make it to the top. But if I realize it was just a small pebble in my way, if I take a break if I need to and keep going, I will get closer and closer to getting on top of the mountain. When you are experiencing depression, it is important to be mindful of substance use. Again, I'm not speaking as like a board of health saying never drink, never smoke, never do this, never do that. But everything is good in moderation. And I know that probably sounds bad because people will take your words and twist them and say, well, she said I could do this. What I'm saying is it's okay to drink, for example, in moderation. It's when you drink to cope with what you're dealing with is when it becomes dangerous. So, for example, you feel bad about what happened at work. So you go home and have a drink. But then you start drinking until you feel better. That's when it becomes dangerous, because then your brain will be trained to learn that drinking makes that issue, whatever issue you are facing, go away. So then your brain will tell you that you need to keep drinking to make that issue go away. And that is how substance abuse and substance dependency can be formed. Having a regular routine is also a way to cope with depression. Get enough sleep. Eat adequate amount of food. If you don't sleep, you will be tired. If you sleep too much, your body will be used to the relaxed state. So when you do engage in activities, you'll be more tired. If you don't eat, you'll be tired. If you overeat, you'll be tired. So again, everything is good in moderation. And energy comes from food. Exercise also gives you energy, and energy helps increase your mood. I hope you found this information very helpful. Again, those are just the diagnostic criteria that I got from the DSM-V, and I will leave the link to the website below about coping strategies for depression. The next thing that I will go over is the questions that you guys posed to me on Facebook when I asked if there was anything that you would like to learn more about mental health. So for this week, we're going to focus on 5 of those questions. If your questions were not featured in this session, don't worry. I'm trying to keep the sessions between 20 and 30 minutes. So please be on the lookout for your questions in upcoming sessions, and please leave in the comment section below questions you may have that you want to see in upcoming sessions. So the first one is, where does mental health come from? There's not one answer for this. There can be a combination of things that create mental health, and we discussed it a little bit earlier. Like for depression, as we discussed, it can come from someone's overall mood. If they're negative all the time, then their brain will be trained to think negatively, and they will be more likely to be depressed. If someone is anal, meaning like they like to have something a certain way every time, and if it deviates from that specific way, they become upset. That can lead to anxiety, because when that situation doesn't go that certain way, or it can also lead to anger issues. When that situation doesn't go that certain way, they become anxious or angry until the situation is fixed, which is not typical for life because things change all the time. It can also come from environmental factors. We talked about poverty. Some other environmental factors are changes, such as hormonal changes. We went over a little bit, but people who are between the ages of 18 and 29 are more likely to be diagnosed with depression. And if you think about it, that's when you experience a lot of major changes in your life. You might have moved away from home. You might have had a baby. You might have gotten married. You might have lost your job. You don't know what you want to do as a job. So all of those changes and things that you have to face in life, you now have to pay your own bills, like they can cause you to have depression, especially if you don't have good coping skills or you're not resilient. People who are 60 or older are more likely to experience depression as well. And again, if you think about that, it's another major change area in your life. You're facing retirement, you're getting older, your kids are leaving the house, you don't have as much money as you did when you were younger because you're on fixed income. Those things can create depression as well. Genetics play a different role in each condition. Some conditions have more genetic predisposition than others. For example, schizophrenia has a really high genetic predisposition. If someone, especially your mother, has had schizophrenia, you are more than likely at risk to have it as well. Some mental illnesses are more prevalent in other genders as well. We talked about women versus men. Women have more hormonal changes than men do. Men are more prevalent to have anger than women because they have more testosterone. Usually when people ask this question, they want to know how to prevent it. And the best way to prevent mental illnesses from becoming out of control is noticing slight changes in yourself and seeking help for those changes, or seeking that person that we talked about earlier that you trust, that you can talk to. Next question is, can you cope without medication? Yes, you can. Again, I stated that some doctors may request that you take medication before seeking therapy, and that all depends on their professional opinion and the severity of your illness. Just because you are taking medication doesn't mean that you always have to take medication, and if you're taking medication, there's nothing to be ashamed of. For example, those who experience substance abuse are typically prescribed medication first, and then they go through counseling to help with that substance abuse, especially if they have become physically dependent. So like if they all of a sudden stop using the substance, they can become very ill. So usually doctors will prescribe medications to help wean them from the substance abuse. I personally mentioned before that I like to take a no medication approach, but I understand if there are people that need to take medication. Engaging in positive behaviors is the best way to cope without medication, and for each disorder, positive behaviors look different. We listed some positive behaviors that you can engage in for depression. Another question was, how do you cure it? In our society, when we think of cure, we think that there's one pill or one action that you can do one time and the problem will go away forever. If you ever heard of a commercial that if you do this exercise for 4 days, you'll lose 40 pounds, and you know how it goes. Unfortunately, in most situations, that's not the case. Think of your mental health just like your physical health. There's no way you can lose 40 pounds healthy in 4 days. Typically, you don't get over a mental illness in 4 days. So it takes time and little steps and patience. Engaging in exercise helps, just like with your physical condition. Engaging in positive affirmations every day. So if you have depression, thinking about the positive things that have happened throughout your day, or yesterday, if you do your positive affirmations in the morning, can typically lead to a better mood throughout the day. And that goes hand in hand with what we said before, how someone who has more of a negative affect will think negatively and more likely be depressed. If you have a positive affect and think more positively, you're less likely to have depression. Engaging in self-care, taking time for yourself, take a bath once a week, some me time, take a walk, things like that. Another question is when to get help. And I mentioned this a little bit before, but it's important to communicate any changes that you're going through with your doctor. Like if you can't find a person that you trust with saying like, I'm not feeling so well, definitely talk to your doctor. You can always talk to your doctor. One, the most important thing is that anything you say between you and your doctor is confidential. So if you feel like you're going to be judged because you think you have depression or anxiety or any other mental illness, please talk to your doctor. They won't tell anybody unless you say they can, and they will be the best resource to help you. If you know someone in your family that is, or friends, that seems a little different lately, ask them and engage with them. Don't ask in a punitive way and say, what's wrong with you? You've been acting weird. But just say, hey, how are you? Is there anything I can do for you today? Or, hey, you want to go on a walk with me? You want to go to the store with me real quick and talk? Distracting them from what's going on is going to help them feel better. But then it also shows them that you're there for them and you genuinely care. How to help others without shaming. I know it sounds cliche, But the best way to not shame somebody is just to be there. A lot of times, like I mentioned before, we want to cure it, we want to fix it, we want to make it all better, we want to make it go away. The most important thing you can do is listen to someone. Listen to what they're saying. Not just listen to respond. Take in what they're saying and understand where they're coming from. And you don't have to provide the solution. Even if you just say, I'm sorry that you're feeling that way, and I hope there is something that will make you feel better. Or, I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Is there anything you need me to do? Or anything that doesn't put the blame on them or trying to fix the situation. They're having enough of a hard time realizing what they're going through. Sometimes just being there is enough. Get education on whatever you think that person may be going through. You can also reach out to your doctor or your counselor and say, hey, like, I really have this friend that I care about, or my son is really going through these things and I don't know what to do. They are going to be the best people to say, these are the steps that you can take. And you know what? Here's a pamphlet on depression. You should read about it. And you reading about it, again, and taking that standpoint to really understand what they're going through is more help than you can think of. Don't use stigma words when it comes to them. You sound crazy. You're being ridiculous. You're insane. You're stupid. You're retarded. You know, you're lazy, especially when you're depressed. If saying you're lazy can be a trigger, because they're not lazy. They are tired. Their body is their mind is telling their body that they're tired. Also, using person first language. For some of you, this may be a new concept, and that's okay. We learn new things every day. So saying he's diagnosed with bipolar disorder, or she's diagnosed with depression, is better than saying he's depressed and she's depressed and she's schizophrenic and he's retarded. We don't use that word, but I'm saying the person is not their condition. They are a person first, and whatever they're experiencing is their condition. The condition can change. The person always remains the same, and they should always be treated as people. Okay, well, that is all the information that I have for you today. I hope that it was helpful and that you learned something and you can use it. A goal that I like to leave everybody with is try to use person first language for the next week. In any aspect, put the person first and then what they're going through or what they've been diagnosed with last. And I'm telling you, you will see a world of difference. Again, thank you for tuning in to Sunday Sessions with Sash. I will see you next week. And please remember to leave comments and questions below of things and topics you would like to discuss. All right, thanks. Bye.